All right. First of all, we need to anticipate situations and formations. After a scoring play, it's important that rather than putting our heads down or maybe having conversation with fellow officials, that we look towards the bench that just scored and look for people that are coming onto the field. If you're doing a good job with your game preparation, you're going to know the number of the kicker. And when you see number 13 coming into the game, you're going to know that, well, there's a good chance that there's going to be a PAT attempted, a one-point attempt. Now, it's important that we complete all of our pre-snap and dead ball responsibilities, and we don't get into a rush to get to what we think is going to be a PAT formation. Side judge as double umpire, for instance, back judge and the field judge under the uprights. We've got plenty of time to get there, so let's not feel like that we've immediately got to get to that particular spot. All right, now in the case of last second field goals or field goals at any particular point, we're just going to get into our positions because they're going to be rushing onto the field. But don't forget that you need to make sure that you are completing your count for Team B. You need to be alert, and this would include your sideline people, that if they see a player coming onto the field for Team B or a number of players, that they need to make sure that they're aware of a corresponding number of players that leave before the snap so that we don't have a snap occur, particularly if we don't get it with more than 11. All right, so standard stuff, back judge and field judge at the uprights. We know that the side judge is going to be the double umpire, 7 yards off the line of scrimmage, no wider than the tight end. You move so that you can see the activity of the lineman. We want to get the side judge on the strong side where the defense has the most players, because if there is going to be an attempt for some funny business up front, it's going to come from the side that has the most players. So we're looking for pull and shoot. We're looking for potentially players jumping over, et cetera, et cetera. All right, now alternative formations, and we're going to get to muddle, huddle, swinging gate, whatever you want to call it here in just a minute. Recognize that this is not a standard formation. Now, the key to recognizing alternative formations and whether we should consider them to be scoring kicks is whether we have a kicker and a holder in position to kick. In other words, you got a holder down behind the snapper, and you've got a kicker in position to catch the kick or to kick the ball after the hold by the holder. So in this particular case, you can see that this is the picture to the right shows that we have a person that appears to be ready to receive the snap, and we have what we would know to be a running back. This is not a PAT formation. You'll notice that we have our side judge in the middle of the field being the double umpire. And when we have formations like this, what we're going to do is we're going to treat it as a two-point attempt until they shift into a formation that's more traditional with a kicker and a holder. And again, we'll have some videos that will show that. All right. When plays break down, if you're a member of, you're either the field judge or the back judge, if we're inside the 20, widen out along the end line, and we will know that the short wings will have responsibility for the goal line. The side judge is not going to attempt to get back to the end line or anything. He or she is simply going to work inside out the way an umpire would. Now, if we have a longer kick where the snap is outside the 20, we want to try to get our field judge and our back judge to the goal line pylon, if you possibly can. And you'll know when it breaks down, when a kick is not going to be possible. So when that happens, then while continuing to officiate players, you should move towards the goal line pylon. All right, now remember, there's a difference between an unsuccessful PAT. That means that the kick is going, or the play is going to be dead as soon as it's obvious that the kick won't be successful. However, in field goal situations, we need to pregame and remind everyone that a field goal is a scrimmage kick. So we treat it just like a punt in terms of the line of scrimmage. So we need to know who touched it first and where they touched it so that we can make determinations in terms of possession. Team A could advance as long as the ball stays behind the line of scrimmage, make the line to gain, potentially score. All right, so then once the ball gets beyond the line, obviously it becomes critical in terms of who touches first, who can recover, and who can advance in terms of this kick, just like on a punt. So line of scrimmage people, we need to make sure that you stay true to your responsibilities as it relates to the neutral zone. All right, now the thing about kicks in general and scoring kicks in particular is we don't get a chance to practice them very much. So we need to do a lot of mental visualization of things so that we're prepared for it. We also need to be very, very cautious in terms of whistles. You know, we get pretty casual with whistles as a general rule throughout the game and through cross positions. And when we get into particularly when we get into the kicking game, we need to make sure that our whistles are slow and well thought out. We have to expect the unexpected. And if something does happen, we may need to get together and piece it together so that we get the correct ruling out of what occurred. Okay. So with that in mind, Gregor, let's go ahead and go to those three clips. So 3 examples of the muddle huddle. Now, week 1 or early in the season, there will be some crews that will be surprised by the muddle huddle because they won't have thought about it, they won't have talked about it, and consequently, when it happens, they're going to be disorganized, running around like chickens with their heads cut off. And we don't know what will happen out of that. We might have the game decided in a situation where we're not any more prepared than Team B is. That's really what Team A is attempting to do, is to confuse Team B. Team A the offense wants to confuse the defense. Now, the people up in the press box are looking to see how the defense responds to these kinds of alternative formations. Now, as you'll see, we do have a snapper. And by the way, if you count the number of linemen, you will see that in this particular formation, we only have 5 linemen over to the far left of the screen, which means that the snapper is the 6th, and the widest guy over there has to be on the line. So the snapper in this formation is not a legal receiver, an eligible receiver. But we need to be aware of that. So from a formation standpoint, there are times when the snapper is going to be an eligible receiver. So we have to go through all of our pre-snap routines, and we need to be hopefully familiar with formations. And if we have the benefit of O2O, we need to be communicating the number of linemen that we have. And if the snapper is eligible, someone needs to hit the key, the mic, and say, be alert, snapper number 88 is an eligible receiver, so that we work through those things. But in this particular situation, you'll notice that we have the back judge and the field judge in a position to judge the kick. And we don't have the kicker or the holder in position. They are not a threat to kick. So field judge should be over here at his pylon. Side judge should not be in the middle of the field, should be over here at his pylon. Back judge right in the middle of the field as you normally would. All right. Now, if they shift from here, which they're going to do in just a minute, there will be plenty of time for us to move to our positions, for the side judge to come in to be the double umpire, for the field judge to come in from the back pylon and assume his position at the upright. And what we end up with here is a standard PAT. But we weren't prepared for it if they had run out of this formation. We need to be in a position where we're treating it as a 2-point attempt, which we don't do here. And trust me, they have all kinds of options to run out of this, including probably some picks. So we need to be prepared for it. All right, clip number 2. Now, this was the same game. That's a different view of the same clip. Go to the next clip, Gregor. All right, now, this is the same game, and interestingly enough, the opponent, take it back to the beginning. Thank you. Now, the opponent is going to run this on the team that ran it earlier in the game against them. Interesting concept here. Now, in this particular formation, you will note that there are 6 linemen over there. Number 21 is on the end of the line at the left side of the screen, and that makes the snapper an eligible receiver. And if you look at the wide receiver at the top of the screen, he is off the line, clearly off the line of scrimmage. So snapper is an eligible receiver, and we need to know that and be aware of it. Now, in this particular case, it would appear to me that Team A could have made a 2-point attempt simply by accepting the snap and throwing a quick forward pass to number 16, that he ought to be able to walk into the end zone, because the defense has not responded to the formation. And again, I find that ironic based on the fact that their team runs the same thing. But for us to be properly positioned, we should have the deep wing back here at the back pylon and the field judge over at his pylon, and run it just like a regular 2-point attempt. Now, they shift here. And the interesting thing is that the referee notices right away, maybe with the assistance of the line of scrimmage people, but Team A has 10 players in formation. Now, it's legal because they have 7 on the line. They just don't have the wing back over to the right side of the formation. The kick goes off successfully, no muss, no fuss. Well, it hits the crossbar. So, excuse me, the upright. So it's no good. But be alert. This is pre-snap and good communication. And I'm glad that the referee caught this. All right, the last one to look at here. Yeah, you can shift to, there we go. I know we catch this late, but you can see that our side judge is already in there by the time that the camera comes on. Now, they're clearly, they shift into what would be a traditional PAT formation. But so that we cover this correctly, we need to start as if this is a 2-point attempt. So referees discuss this, other members of the crew, make sure that you have conversation about it so that you know what you're going to do in the event that you get this formation from either one of the teams. Being the first game of the year, I don't know whether the coach will tell you that he runs a swinging gate or not. I'm not sure if I was the coach that I would tell you. So take it upon yourself as crews to be ready for it in the event that you face it. All right, Gregor, let's go ahead and, well, first of all, while we're transitioning to scrimmage kicks, any questions about muddle huddle? We don't need to make it complicated if we're prepared for it. And again, everyone on the crew, if you have some communication device, can be helping as you're looking for the kicker coming onto the field. But we can be deliberate. We can start in sort of a neutral position from the deep wings perspective. Maybe we're not all the way back to our pylon position, but we're close enough that within a couple of steps and a couple of seconds, we can be back there where we should be on a 2-point attempt from the 3. Okay, this first one is clip 149. Now, first of all, part of your pre-snap is you need to know if you have numbering exceptions. and you'll notice that you have a number of players in here in ineligible positions wearing eligible numbers. So if the player that is in the tackle position right now, now the one further out to the right, I believe that's number 21, playing left tackle. We need to know at the end of the play, if 21 catches a forward pass, Houston, we have a problem. So we need to make sure, all right, 72, all right, somewhere in there was an eligible number. So we need to know numbering exceptions. All right, let's go ahead and run it. Now, this kid is going to catch this kick pretty well, and it's going to chase the kick returner and our coverage deep. And you can see that the back judge attempts to backpedal and consequently ends up trailing this play. You need to make a pretty quick decision, and trust me, you will be happier in situations like this, back judges, and especially deep wings, if you recognize immediately, oh, no, backpedal isn't going to get it, and you open that hip and you run. So here we need to make sure, even though this is a long kick and it's understandable why we're not immediately thinking that the goal line might be threatened, it turns out to be. So when we have a situation like this, we need to make the commitment and get some depth. And fortunately, this kick does not make it all the way back to the goal line. We have an illegal touching that occurs, and then the ball is down at the 4. All right. We also had people on both sidelines. If you run that back one more time, you can see we've got way too much traffic. I see the deep wing at the bottom of the screen has this guy that he's coming to here with the umbrella way up on the sideline. We need to be aware of that. You know, every play you should be taking when you have an opportunity, you should be looking in front of you and behind you to make sure that all the white is clear. Here, that guy had no business being where he was. And then if you look at the other side of the field, there's unnecessary non-game personnel over there as well. So keep those people out of there. All right, Gregor, clip 31. The first thing to notice here on this clip is that we're going to get an invalid signal by the kick returner. Now, I'm calling that an invalid signal because he's flailing his arms around. Now, I know he's verbally and trying to visually tell his teammates that it's fire, or hot, whatever they call, red, whatever it is, but understand and respect the fact that by virtue of what he did, anything that is above the shoulders is considered to be invalid, meaning no one on that kicking team is going to be able to advance that ball. We're going to bring it back to the spot where it was, where firm control was obtained. Now, the other thing of interest here is that the ball is first or illegally touched at about the 32, but that ball continues to move forward. So at the end of this play, the correct spot to put this ball is up near the 50-yard line, not where it was first illegally touched. It's touched right there, but it continues to move, and everybody just kind of gives up on it. But one of the players is smart enough to know that it's not dead, and he comes up and downs it at about the 44. So our dead ball spot is going to be at the 44, not back here at the 32. All right, next clip is 56. Now, we know the back judge has responsibility for the kick returner. We're going to get a muffed kick. Now, the video is not really good, but it does not appear that we had kick-catch interference. For the sake of this conversation, we're going to say that it did not occur. When we have this kick that is muffed by Team B, the only thing that Team A can do is to recover the ball. Now, again, if that ball comes loose a second time, we need to have a determination. Did we have firm control of the football to the point where that we essentially the ball is dead, as opposed to, well, he never really gets it and it's still moving around and consequently it's still live. That may have to involve involvement with a conversation with a couple of officials on a play. It might be a short wing, might be a deep wing, but we need to circle the wagons to make sure at the end of the play that the correct team receives the ball. Let's say that we judge that firm control is obtained by team A and it ends up getting knocked out of there, whatever, and then team B ends up with the ball. Referee needs to explain with a microphone announcement to say, the ruling on the field is a muff by team B, recovered and controlled by team A. 1st and 10, 44-yard line, whatever it happens to be. All right, next clip.
Hey, Rich, can I ask you a question on this play about beanbags?
Sure.
Should you beanbag the spot where the kicking team recovers?
No.
All right.
That's
Thank
not
you.
an enforcement spot. Remember, and this gets into the question that one of our people who regularly is on the call posed this week: the use of the beanbag. Remember, the beanbag is either the end of the kick. So in other words, you have firm possession, or that is the dead ball spot where it finished if there isn't a return, or a fumble after firm possession has been controlled, or the third use of the beanbag is an illegal first touch by team A. Other than that, don't drop the bag. So here, when team B touches this ball, both teams are eligible to recover. Now, in the case of team B, without a signal, valid or invalid, they would be able to recover team in advance. Team A can only recover the ball. All right, next clip should be clip 20. All right, now consider time, score, and situation. This is 4th down from about the 46-yard line. It's 4th down, looks like about 16. All right, so we're not completely, of course, we're never completely assured that we're going to get a scrimmage kick on any down. But here we have to at least consider the fact that depending on how team B responds to this, they may attempt to go for it on 4th down. And what we need to do is to, from a deep 3 perspective, is a little bit of depth is okay. Once you see that person that normally receives the snap back up into a more kicking posture, then we can give a little more ground. The thing that we have a hard time doing is recovering when the ball gets beyond us. So it's always easier to come back up if we need to than it is to try to find that goal line. So here, what you need to do, deep 3, is to respect the fact that this is probably going to be a kick, but yet watch our receivers. And on this particular play, you'll see that the player receiving the snap takes a look over there, but can see that there are defenders in reasonable position, and his chances of making the line to gain are not very good. Now, if team B does not respond, and like there's no one defending these guys in the flat, they may go ahead and throw that ball over there and take their chances. Once the kick goes, though, we have got to get some depth to make sure that we're back there to cover the goal line. So make sure that you talk about quick kicks as a possibility. 2 years ago, it was the year of the onside kick. Last year was a year of quick kicks. It'll be interesting to see what the coaches learned in the coaching clinics this past winter and spring, and what they're going to spring on us and their opponents this year. Like next clip is 76. This is going to be a rugby punt. And we're not going to take the time to get into interpretations in terms of being outside of the tackle box and all of that as it relates to the kicker and his protection. That'll be a conversation for another time. But here, once again, until we get that kick released, we have to play it as if something other than a kick is going to occur. So make sure that we are aware of what is happening to and by our keys as it relates here. We've got wide people to both sides of the field. So our deep wing should be alert to that. And then once the kick goes, we know, all right, we've got a regular scrimmage kick situation. Now, in this particular case, for some reason, the kick returner comes in after this ball hits the turf. Now, we know while the ball is airborne, the kick returner has the right of first refusal, if you will. They have to have a clear opportunity to come up and have an unimpeded opportunity to catch the ball. Here, he's not playing the ball. Ball hits the ground, turf, and now it's free ball. And it really is determined by who touches the ball first in terms of whose possession this is going to be. So bad choice by the kick returner. Now, the other point that I want to make is here, I think our back judge gets a little excited, comes up a little quick. Once you've got your ruling and you know what you're going to do with it, let's make sure that we finish the play. And the other thing that I would say to you is it wouldn't hurt Mr. Back Judge or Miss Back Judge for you to confirm your ruling with one of the other deep officials to make sure that they have the same thing. We don't need to hurry this signal. And once again, at the end of the play, we're going to communicate to the referee that the ball was first touched downfield by Team B and then recovered by Team A. So our announcement from the referee will be similar to what I just said. Rolling on the field is that the kick was first touched by a member of the receiving team and recovered by the kicking team. First down, 40-yard line. All right, next clip should be 135. Now, this is going to be a good read and react by our deeps because this is going to be another deep kick. We're kicking from about the 20-yard line, and this kid catches it pretty well. And we find ourselves in quick retreat mode. We need to get back and stay behind this kick so that we keep our players properly boxed in. Now, the only thing that I would say here is remember, back judges, your deep wings have responsibility for the dead ball spot. We don't need the back judge to rush the stage to come up here to set the ball down on a forward progress situation. There are too many other things going on. Now, in this particular case, there are not a lot of opponents around each other, but in most situations, there will be. So stay back, let your field judge, side judge determine a spot. We're going to put it on a yard line. So stay back, watch players. And then after the players have separated, okay, you can come up. If you feel better about handing the ball to the umpire so that he can spot it, or you want to spot it after we've cleared players, I'm good with that. All right, the next one is 107, Gregor. This is going to be an unusual situation. We're going to get a snap from the plus 36. Now, as you can see here, this is fourth down and about 8 yards to go. So essentially what Team A is saying is we may end up with a touchback, but we're going to gain about 16 yards in the exchange by even if the ball goes into the end zone. Now they're also taking the chance that Team B may run it back and end up with better field position. But clearly we have got to protect our goal lines, our goal line by being at the pylons. And we can see that the deep wing at the top of the screen was right where he needed to be, as was the back judge. Now, this is an interesting scenario because this is an airborne kick. Who has first right to an airborne kick? Receiving team. All right, now in this particular case, I'm all right with a no call for not calling KCI because the kick returner really isn't playing the ball until the very end. He's really not making a valid attempt to try to catch that ball. If they're both looking back at the ball and he's actively trying to catch the ball, then this team A player needs to let him do it. This would be KCI if number 10 in the black shirt was, if we would judge him to be actively attempting to catch this kick. All right, that's 107. All right, let's look at 33. This is a pretty standard punt situation. Now, our flyers are going to come down the field, and as you saw at about the 35-yard line, that's an OH, that's a throw down, a takedown, whatever you want to call it. For some reason, we didn't get this. And that happens. And as you've heard me say when we talked about quality fouls, if we're going to be wrong on something, let's be wrong on something that we miss as opposed to something that we call that either isn't there at all or isn't strong enough to justify a flag. Here we should have holding by that red shirt at about the 35. So if we need to make a determination, was the hold before the kick was possessed? Because if it was, then we're going to have post-scrimmage kick enforcement, and it would be enforced from the 25-yard line, 10 yards. If it's during the return, then it ends up being about the same spot. But if the return, you get the 3-and-1 principle, so we won't go through those details. But we do get a kick return. So what happens here is back judge has first responsibility to make sure that the kick ends with firm control and possession. And then and only then can the back judge participate in terms of point of attack. Deep wings, you need to be aware of that. You're not going to get immediate help from your back judge. So your vision needs to be wide, particularly at the point of attack, to make sure that you've got maybe more than one engagement within your visual field to make determinations in terms of its legality. Now here, the deep wing at the left side of the screen comes up, squares it off nicely, gets cuts. You can see his shadow as he's coming up to it. Now, for some reason, our short wing comes up pretty aggressively. I don't see where there's a whole lot going on here. It doesn't look too, it clears pretty quickly. Now, if you think that there's going to be a scrum, okay, by all means come. But when the players separate, stop. Don't continue to the pile once you recognize that the situation has resolved itself. Okay, 70. Now this is going to be a KOB. Now our deep wing was in decent position, probably a little deeper than I'd like to see. When we have the potential of a coffin corner kick, which is in the air, your position should be about 2 yards behind the pylon at a 45-degree angle. It looks like we've got the angle, but we're too far off of the sideline. You can see what we're really looking for is that the nose of this deep wing is over the pylon so that if it goes to his left eye, he knows he's got a touchdown or a touchback. And if the kick goes past his right eye, that we've got a kick out of bounds. That's the idea. But once we're certain that the kick is not in the air going to threaten the pylon, then we rotate to our normal goal line extended position. Now here, clearly that kick did not threaten the goal line, and we need to figure out a spot. Now, as a guideline, if the ball lands in the white, deep wings, you got it all on your own. Don't look for help from your referee. You should be able to come up and determine a pretty accurate spot. If the ball lands in the green, then it would be appropriate for you to look for help from your referee, and your referee should be alert to that. A shank should be able to read that off the foot and be alert to be able to give you some support there. Looks like this kick went out of bounds, at least at the 10, maybe even a little bit in front of that. All right, next clip. All right, now our back judge recognized that the quarterback backed up beyond his normal pistol position, and that immediately told him this is likely to be a quick kick, which is exactly what it turned out to be. So good alert by the back judge. The same thing would be true for the other members of the deep three. So when you see that, start giving ground, recognizing that you still may need to make a determination on a running or a passing play. All right, next clip, Gregor. This should be number 80. All right, here we're going to get too much movement. Now, I realize at Ford Field it may be a little bit confusing because the hash mark is set for the NFL. Our hash mark is that small mark. Well, it was snapped from the hash. Be careful anytime, whether it be Ford Field or otherwise, that you not pin yourself too far towards the sideline. Better for you to stay in the middle of the field. You can always adjust. As long as you're relatively near the kick returner, you can take a step or two to be able to see that angle in terms of whether the kick is touched or not. But here we get really too much movement as opposed to just staying stationary. All right, next kick, next clip. All right, once again, we've got a snap coming from the hash mark, and that jumped on us. Look what happens when we got too far inside as a back judge. It went away from us, and all of a sudden now we're in chase mode behind this. Whereas if we stay more in the center of the field, it's longer before that kick returner crosses our face. We unfortunately took ourselves out of point of attack much too quickly because we bounced outside. You can see angle. In fact, I would say that if he had stayed further to his right, he probably would have had a better angle to make a determination on touching by the kick returner in the event of a muff. So make sure that you don't move yourself out of position. Move with purpose. Make sure that movement is going to be an asset to your coverage on a play. In that particular case, it really was not. All right, this is going to be a potential KCI. Pretty good play by that member of Team A. Now, what should be our thought process here in terms of KCI? We know that there has to be an unimpeded opportunity to catch the kick. We also know that the kick returner has the option of signaling for a fair catch. It does not appear to me that there's any attempt for a return here because you can see that the first 5 or 6 people down the field are members of the kicking team. He should know that. So consequently, this should have been a fair catch. Clearly, this ball is in firm control of the kick returner when he is hit. So if the coach says, why isn't that KCI? Well, he had his opportunity to catch the kick, which he did. And if he wanted to avoid the contact, the correct decision would have been to signal for a fair catch. All right, 61. We're going to lose cushions here by our back judge and our deep wing, and really unnecessarily so, simply because we get our feet too stationary here rather than continuing to move. So it looks like from a deep wing perspective that you're a long way from the kick. He's like 3 yards behind the kick returner. And visually you're thinking, oh, I got a lot of space, I got a good cushion, but you still need to maintain that 7-yard cushion behind the kick returner at all times. It's a bigger issue for the back judge. Look what happens here when he starts to reverse his field. That closes down on him. So we need to make sure that we respect the cushion by maintaining that 7-yard belt between ourselves and the kick returner. All right, this should be 115. Let's look at the point of attack here on this particular return. Now, when the kick returner reverses his field, immediately, everyone on the field should go, okay, high alert, because everything up to that point has been based on where the kick is coming down in the start of the return. But when he comes back the other way, now all of that becomes, we got to start all over again, because there's a possibility of block in the back. There's a possibility of blindside block as a result of the cutback. So now all of a sudden, when he comes back inside, we've got to be alert to what happens to those blocking angles and those teammates of the kick returner. In this particular case, it's clean. These players are well coached. They know that, they've got to make sure that they can get it to the side at the very least, et cetera, et cetera. So this was pretty well handled. It could have turned out to be a lot different. All right, a couple more, and then we're going to transition to free kicks. All right, this should be number 17. We've got a snap from the -45. And once again, this kid is going to catch it pretty well. And it's going to go over the kick returner's head. And it skipped on us there. See, we're pretty slow getting back there. We've got to read and react. One of the things, if you remember from the PowerPoint, is that you've got to read the kick off the foot of the punter in terms of depth and direction. And you should be able to tell when that comes off that foot clean and you can hear that thud, you got a possibility that it's going to be over the kick returner's head. And we don't really get back there as quickly as we should. Now, it all worked out pretty obviously a touchback, but read and react is something that we need to do, and we need to do it well. Back judge, you can see back pedals. I would suggest to you after a couple of steps that you open that hip, and now that you're shuffling as opposed to trying to backpedal. You backpedal long enough, you're going to end up on your fanny, and you also have everything closed down on you more quickly. All right, next clip is number 9. Now this is going to be number 9 is going to be a bouncing kick, and we let this get up on us as deep officials. We've got to treat bouncing kicks the same way we treat kicks on the fly. So as this goes, it's going to hit, and we're going to see where we end up. Both the back judge and the deep wing at the top of the screen are too close to this. And again, as I previously mentioned on a clip just a moment ago, when you're that far away as a deep wing in particular, you get fooled. You think that you've got a better cushion than you do. Actually, he was like a yard or two behind the kick returner, and you want to be another 5 or 6 yards deeper to respect the cushion, to make sure you have your angles, not only for firm control of the kick, but also to pick up point of attack. Our back judge is a little bit deeper. He does a nice job staying behind the kick, just needs a little deeper cushion. All right, number 14. We need to view the first threats coming down the field. Now, the first threats are typically the wide people, but sometimes you'll get linemen coming out of there. And here, all clean and everything, but deep wings, these are your responsibilities. It's not necessarily the flyer. In this particular case, it's the ends, but you've got responsibility for this action. All right, next one is 49. This is going to be a fair catch. Now, once again, remember, back judges, A, we don't need a beanbag down on a fair catch. B, the spot of the dead ball spot is going to be the responsibility of our deep wing. Stay out of there, stay back, make sure that the catch is completed, make sure that action around the kick returner is clean. We don't need you to come up this quickly. My thought is that this is probably a 5-person back judge, and not that it's correct in 5-person either, but in 5-person, you don't have the support from your deep officials. So I can understand why he would come up in a 5-person situation. Here in 7, don't rush the stage, stay back. All right, now this last one is number 77. This is also going to involve timing by our back judge. Does a good job staying back. This was well done by our back judge. He did not rush the stage. He recognized that this is going to be a spot that our field judge or our side judge is going to take, and he's going to referee this dead ball action behind the return. And our deep wing comes up, takes the spot. That was correctly done. That's what we're looking for. All right, so let's pause just a minute. Questions about scrimmage kicks?
Hey, Rich, this is Chuck. I got a couple comments.
Go ahead, sir.
First touching by K beyond the line of scrimmage is first touching, not illegal touching. That's probably college wording, but for us, it's just first touching.
Okay. Actually, that's the same then. It is first touching, not illegal touching in college as well.
Okay. All right. And the other thing too is if K can keep the ball out of the end zone, it doesn't matter where his feet are. It's the position of the ball according to the goal line. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. It's breaking the plane of the goal line as opposed to the physical position of the player fielding the kick.
Correct.
Good. All right, any other comments about scrimmage kicks? We tend to have more scrimmage kicks than we do free kicks in most games, unless you have a really wide open game with a lot of scoring where you don't have a lot of punts. The thing about the kicking game in general is that you have the opportunity for big plays every time the ball is in the air, or in the case of a block kick, when it doesn't get off the kicker's foot. So these are plays that we have to be alert to. Just like we've talked about in every other aspect of the game, we got to make sure that if we've got a flag down on something, that we have a clear cut beginning to end. We saw it all the way through. It's a block in the back, it's a hold, it's a clip, whatever it turns out to be. And that we're not throwing phantom things. The other thing would be that not only the deep three working as a unit, but the entire crew working as a unit. If you get a look at a block and you see a flag down, at the end of the play, you need to go to the corresponding official and say, what do you have? And if it's, let's say it's a block in the back, and you saw it all the way and it's a side block, and clearly the guy fell on his side, he didn't fall on his face, et cetera, then that's when we need to interject to make sure that we pick up a flag when it's appropriate to do so. Okay, and obviously protect the goal line. You know, in scrimmage kick situations, we need to make sure that we have at least one and hopefully all three of our officials back there to make judgments in terms of what happens near the goal line. All right, so let's transition out of free kicks. From the PowerPoint and those that have been involved in these plays for a number of years, you know my mantra that every free kick is a short kick until it's not. And I learned that the hard way in my own career, where I don't know what I was thinking, but I wasn't thinking about a short kick and I got a surprise one and I didn't handle it very well at all. Fortunately, people came to my assistance and we ended up getting it right. But I said to myself, that'll never happen to me again. Consequently, from that point forward, I've always considered every free kick to be a short kick. That begins with the beanbag in your hand. Every free kick, if you're an upfront person, umpire, back judge, two deep wings, should have that beanbag in your hand. Now, if the kick goes deep, stick it in your pocket, stick it in your belt, whatever you want to do, because you're not as likely to need it. But if you got it in your hand, you can make a determination that you had a first touching before the ball got to the restraining line. And the other thing is that it helps you remember that this could be a short kick so that we don't get surprised. Preparation is always better than being surprised by what occurs. Now, this first kick is number 24. So this is going to be jumps on us here. Hopefully we can get that cleaned up. This is clip 24. So we've been playing a while. This is still probably first quarter, but we get that short kick and it isn't immediately fielded cleanly by Team B. It ends up that Team B gets it back. You can see our deep wing lining up at the 50 is very, very passive here. We get good aggressive action from, I believe, our umpire and the deep wing coming across the field to clean up. But once you get firm control, once you get clearly that someone has it at the bottom of the pile, then we need to come in and clean it up and then determine with a signal, or if you're in there digging, you may need to say to someone around you, Team B has recovered, and then someone is going to signal the direction that Team B is going so that we get that determination made for the teams and the press box. And then once again, our referee would come on the mic and confirm the fact that we had a recovery by the receiving team. Okay, next clip, Gregor. All right, this is another short kick. And again, we shouldn't be surprised. The receiving team continues to be surprised. Once you have one, you got to figure that you may have some others that will follow. So come in, clean it up, and we move forward. All right, next clip, Gregor. All right, opening kickoff. Now, opening kickoff of the season, you can fast forward that because we had the ball fall off the tee. We're going to get a pop-up kick that's going to come down at the bottom of the screen at about the 45, maybe 42-yard line. Now, it's in the air, so Team A has some options. They can signal for a fair catch. They can elect to field it and then try to return it. In this particular case, it's muffed by number 1. Now, because it's airborne, we have the potential of kick-catch interference. In this particular case, it's clearly not. Now, the other thing that we have would be blocking by by either team, but particularly typically the blocking that occurs by the kicking team trying to get people out of the way so someone else can come in and field the ball. And until they are legally able to touch the ball, they can't block. So in this particular case, that doesn't happen. But all of these things are scenarios that we need to run through, hopefully in our pregame. And in that time in between the dead ball and the actual kick, you should be mentally going through some of these potential scenarios. Kick-catch interference, early blocking, touching the ball before they're able to field the ball, kick near the sideline, kick out of bounds untouched by Team B. All of these things you should run through your computer, so when they actually do happen, you don't have to do that processing phase to make a ruling, like, for instance, a flag for a kick out of bounds untouched by Team B. All right, next clip.
Rich, real quick, I just want to clarify something. You said it was a pop-up kick. So the high school, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but pop-up kicks are when they drive into the ground and then pop up, which would be an illegal free kick.
Okay.
And then would this be more like a pooch kick?
All right, thank you. Yeah, we need to get our terminology down. This is a pooch kick. It's a little humpback liner, if you will, that it was intended to do exactly what occurred. Thank you, Gregor. All right, next clip. I know this is a mid-range kick, particularly when we get later in the season, when there's been a little more practice time, the teams are going to get a little more refined with how they handle the kicking game. Early in the season, they haven't as much time to work on things. Here, they don't want to kick deep. They want to try to pin the receiving team down. As it turns out, they didn't do a very good job of defending this kick. But the point being, when you read the ball off the foot, in this case, it would be the field judge and the side judge. When you recognize that this is going to be a shorter kick, you probably don't move off of your restraining line until the return has begun to develop. You're looking for those blocks that are going to occur more quickly because the ball is coming down and they're not going to retreat as far. You can see that the engagement occurs here probably 5 yards sooner than it would. You might also recall seeing this clip when we did quality fouls, because we miss a block in the back, which aids the return about another 20 yards. And then we have a personal foul over at the sideline. But the point being that on mid-range kicks, you're not going to move, because you get down there too far and you lose your angles, you lose your perspective. All right, next clip, Gregor. All right, another opening of the season kick. Now, what we're going to look at here will be our keys going down the field. couple more clips and we're going to call it a night. It's 8 o'clock right now. So we're going to have an opportunity. Stop it, Gregor. Now, the engagements happen first at the top of the screen. Can you run this back? Sometimes they are equal in this particular case, whether the players are faster at the top of the screen, or maybe it's with the intent that the ball is going to be kicked on that side of the field and they know that. They have their own reasons, but what we're going to do is we're going to separate responsibilities. In this particular case, the umpire is going to have the inside 3 players, and the deep wing at Team B's restraining line will have the outside 3 players. And sometimes we overlap with a player. And obviously, when you don't have, when your key or one of your keys is not actively engaged, you check down and help more to the inside. But we're going to get a takedown block at about the 40-yard line. And this probably belongs in this particular case to the umpire. But if we flip the field, and this was on the back judge's side of the field, this is one that we would want the back judge to get. This is a takedown. The fact that it results in a touchback is not of concern to us, because takedowns will always attract more attention. It's out in the open. We want to get that. The other thing to consider, and I think we talked about this during quality fouls, is I'm not saying that necessarily we need offsetting UNRs. In fact, I'm not an advocate for doing that, because, you know, it's like kissing your sister. You really don't, there's no consequence that comes from it as opposed to an unsportsmanlike foul. But clearly we need to get to these 2 players, and we need to make sure they know that this is not going to be permitted, that they need to get it straightened out before we have to deal with it. Next clip. All right, we're going to get, well, let's see, this is, what clip number is this, Gregor?
This is 111. Rich.
All right, go past that one. Once again, we're going to look at keys coming down the field. You can see that we get engagements. Now, once we get players to the 20 and inside, we need to pregame with our referee and our 2 line of scrimmage people that we need help on those, because the traffic gets pretty difficult to sift through, to be able to make determinations on what happens up there. Now, in this particular case, we get a block in the back by the player near the sideline. And this was also one that we looked at during quality fouls. By philosophy, we don't want this called because there's no advantage here, and blocks in the back are not safety fouls. This runner's going out of bounds. This is not unusually vicious. There's no safety situation, so it's one that we would pass on. Make note of it, perhaps talk to the player, et cetera, might need to explain that to the coach, but that's one that I would expect that we would get as a deep wing at the top of the screen if the timing was different that involved the end of the kick. All right, one more here, Gregor, and we'll call it a night. What number is this?
This is 31.
All right, let's go to 112. I know this is going to be a return that's going to go a ways down the field. And that's why we're going to look at it, because we've got to continue to adjust our cushion to make sure that we stay ahead of this play. Our umpire is going to be in the middle of the field, and ideally he would also move to keep this moving forward. But you can see this gets up on him. Now, again, ideally, we would want him more in the center of the field, reading the play and with a greater cushion. But if this is the back judge, by all means, I would expect that you would be at least 10 yards deeper than this official in a position recognizing that this might go all the way for a score. Same thing from a deep wing perspective. You're going to respect the fact that this might break and might challenge your goal line pilot.